Good morning and welcome to Voices in the Valley.
There's nothing not perfect about this moment, even though I'm super nervous. You know.
Good morning and welcome to Voices in the Valley, where we celebrate the creative spirit and nurture the art of storytelling. My name is Steph, and I have a new host here today because we're doing things all different. And so Jeff Brandt from Storyboard Films has agreed to not only be in behind the camera, but also in front of the camera. So Jeff, welcome to Voices in the Valley.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. It's good to have you here, and we have a really interesting topic today. We are talking about living with courage and resilience in the face of post-traumatic stress disorder. Alexis Rose, author of Untangled, a story of resilience, courage, and triumph. Alexis Rose, I'm going to introduce you now, but actually, Alexis Rose is the pen name for your book, Untangled.
Right.
And we have Evey Krammer-Carlson here joining us to talk about her experience and her book and to share resources for people in the community who may have experienced trauma of some sort. So, Evey, it's just great to have you here, and thank you for being on Voices in the Valley.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about this. Like you said, my name is Evey, and I write under the pen name Alexis Rose. And um, Untangled is my memoir that came out about 15 months ago, and it came out kind of by accident. Um, I have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and I used writing as one of the tools for healing. And I had put out a few motivational, inspirational kind of poetry books. And I was writing, and all of a sudden I found that I may have written a book. And so,
Wow.
with just a lot of support from people, I turned it into a memoir, and it was released about 15 and a half months ago. And it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey. I thought it would be a very niche audience of people who perhaps had been through trauma or people who knew people who'd been through trauma, and it's really just crossed all genres, and it's just been this great experience.
Oh, Evey, that's fantastic. Can you tell me a little bit about your memoir
I,
and
I
your story?
yes, I'd be glad to. So, um, I- for the first 20 years of my life, I survived unimaginable abuse.
Mm.
And after those first 20 years, I spent the next 17 years being threatened to stay silent. And through that time, I was still determined to have a life. And so I did a really good job, I thought, of repressing memories and kind of living a life. I got married, went to college, had children, was just living this life where I just thought I was controlling everything in
Mm.
around me. And when my daughter was 16, she was walking across the street to go to school, and she was hit by a van at 30 miles per hour.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was, she's with us. And she is thriving and she's doing great. But that instant, when I got that call, it was like my snow globe world shattered.
Mm.
And that whole control that I thought and all my repressed memories started to come out. And so for the year following my daughter's accident, I was really busy caring for her, making sure she got healthy. But still, all these memories started coming out, and I didn't realize they were memories. I thought I was going crazy. And so I found myself in a therapist's office saying, I think I'm going crazy. I'd never even really heard of PTSD because at that time, this is 8 years ago, at that time, I thought the only people who suffered with PTSD were people coming back from the military.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and that wasn't my case, and so I didn't know anything about it. I just thought I was going crazy. I wanted to get better so I could go back to work full time. And what happened instead, I used to think about this as, oh my gosh, I fell apart. But really, how I look at it now is I feel like I started coming together
Mm.
because now I have a very congruent past. Um, I I still have PTSD.
What does that mean for people
Yeah.
that don't know what it is? Like, I mean, we've heard of it, but like,
hmm
how does it manifest?
Well, post-traumatic stress disorder, I think it can manifest in a lot of ways. I can tell you how it manifested in me, and I think from what I know, my symptoms are pretty common. So for me, flashbacks was a really huge thing, and those have a really good chokehold. So flashbacks, the anxiety, unable to concentrate, nightmares, hypervigilance, or that that's being startled all the time, being very overwhelmed in places where there's just too many choices and you can't make the choices, and um, it's easy to get triggered. Something can trigger you, whether it's a smell or maybe it's the wind or something like that can sometimes trigger you. So you're just not okay. So that's how it manifested in me. And I think those are pretty common, but I'm sure there's many, many other symptoms that people experience.
How did your relationship to your trauma change as you were writing? Because I know that you said that was part of your therapeutic approach. I'm curious, like, if
Yeah,
you noticed that shifting and what that was like.
that is a great question because it did change. I was so angry at my trauma and so angry that I had PTSD. And just couldn't settle down and was always in this feeling this state of crisis. And I used to write journaling, with a pen and paper, and my therapist had gone to a meeting, and it was suggested that perhaps by writing on a computer you were using both sides of your brain, bilateral stimulation I think it's called. And so it provided me a way to use both sides of my brain, right, and keep a little bit of distance from the emotion. So I was able to just, for lack of a better word, just kind of vomit everything out on
Hmm.
paper. And I found that at times it just propelled me into the next stage of my healing journey.
What are some of the other tools that I'm sure there's more than just writing. What else is useful?
Well, for me, I do yoga. I try to really use a mindfulness approach, because for me, just because of the severity of my post traumatic stress disorder, it's pretty rare that I have a great day, a whole great day. But now I'm able to recognize those perfect moments. Like sitting here, I'm able to recognize there's nothing not perfect about this moment, even though I'm super nervous, you know? But so I think that helps, just being in the present, making sure I have really good support around me. And I'm really, really fortunate. I have this wonderful, wonderful support system. And I think that's key because surviving trauma, of any kind, it can it can be a really lonely experience because nobody can do it for you, but it doesn't have to be an alone experience. And so I think that that is key for people to understand. However a support system looks, try to incorporate that into your healing.
Abby, this is such great information, and I am so grateful that we have you for the second half of the show and that you'll be back after our short break to talk with student host Emma so that we can
Awesome.
talk more about post traumatic. I cannot speak today. Post traumatic stress disorder and how to live with that, and also resources available to people. So, thank you for listening to Voices in the Valley. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
What I'm really curious to know is how do you think teenagers should handle an abusive situation?
Wow, that's a great question.